welcome to all of you to our podcast series. And today is going to be a very, very exciting session where we will go through that why master data management is important and what are the some of the strategic trends which are going to be in year 2025. Well, today, I have some special guests today with me, and I'll definitely introduce them to you. But before that, I just want to, give you quick introduction of myself. So I have spent almost 2 decades in master data management, and it's majorly worked around all the tools, more than 100 plus implementations. So I have a deep exposure in master data management, and this subject is very, very close to my heart as well. And but learning is like a never ending thing, so we keep inventing ourselves, we keep trying to learn more and more that what's going to be there in next year. And today, that's why I am inviting some of the two prominent names in the data management world, and they'll be with me, and we can discuss in length about that what MDM is all about, why this is exactly important, and what trends you can see in next year. And if at all, if you have any questions during this podcast, guys, please feel free to ask in the chat box, or you can mention in the comment box as well, and I'll definitely pick it for you. So let me introduce one of my guests. So I have Scott with me. Scott, I think everybody knows him in the data management world. He's the space of the data, I would say. So Scott, very warm welcome to our podcast.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. MDM, dear to my heart as well. Master data is your most important data, that's for sure.
Absolutely, Scott. I think it is our fortune. I mean, we are very fortunate to have you over here because I know that I've been chasing you. And thank you so much for joining in. And I would love to hear those stories, which we always see in the big conferences. I mean, I've attended so many. I know that, when you speak, people listen. So it will be great for our viewers to listen about
Yes,
MDM
even though I'm
stories.
the data whisperer, spoiler alert, I don't do a whole lot of whispering. We save that for the data. I'm out there telling, selling, and yelling about the power and value of proper data management. And today we have to yell even louder, given all the other things that are going on in the space. So we can
Absolutely. Scott,
dive
we
into
will.
that.
I've invited one more guest, Scott, today in our podcast. So I'll introduce her also. So she is Prachi, and she is working as a data consultant at Accenture, and she has done a lot of business consulting from Accenture to the clients where they talk about the MDM, data quality, and some of the strategic trends which are there in data management. So hey Prachi, welcome to our podcast series.
Thank you so much, Rohit, and hello, Scott. So I'll just give a very short introduction about myself. So I have over 12 years of experience in data management, working with clients from finance, healthcare, life sciences, and retail sector, and majorly about strategic aspect of this field. And for past 5 years, I'm focusing on data governance and quality. That is all about me.
Nice to know, Prachi. Scott, I think it's time to start, and the main question is that why MDM, Scott? But before that, I want you to spend probably a minute on what master data management is. But the big question will be for today, why MDM is required.
Master data management is an enterprise practice to help manage what I would consider the core entity data in an organization. So the standardized foundational basic data about brands, about customers, partners, relationships, products, assets, the nouns of the business is what they call master data, and creating that really important, and I would suggest the most important data you have in your organization takes a enterprise-wide practice to manage it through data governance, data stewardship, data quality initiatives, and so on. So it tends to be kind of a back office, sort of dull sounding type of approach, given all the other supposedly more exciting, flashy, sparkly, hot, cool things going on in the space. But it's absolutely fundamental to anything you do with technology is to have that core foundational data standardized for your enterprise.
Absolutely, Scott. So now, why organizations should invest in master data management? So what will you tell to the people who are there in their MDM journey and they're not able to decide that should I go for it or should I not go for it. So just a word for them.
I mean, I'd probably answer right back, like, why not? Why aren't you doing it? What makes you think you shouldn't do it? So every company I've ever run into is trying to provide value to their relationships through their brands at scale. And because they want to do that, if you want to do anything at scale, you need technology. Technology is hardware, software, data. You have data, you need data management. If you are trying to do something with your relationships, and what company isn't trying to manage their relationships, grow their relationships, improve their relationships, protect their relationships, mitigate the risk of some kinds of relationships. Every business has relationships. You don't have relationships, you don't have a business. So the data about those relationships, again, the most important data you have. So show me what you're trying to do, and I'll show you where master data will fit in. And the problems people have most of the time when they try to scale are not about the hardware, are not about the software. They usually don't have problems with external data. They have problems with their own data. Different silos, different departments have different definitions of the same type of entity. Those things don't connect. They've got duplicates. It's a big mess underneath the covers. And trying to manage that is really the key to doing anything with technology across your organization.
Absolutely, Scott. Agree with you. I mean, even I have seen in my experience that that once you have MDM in your organization, you can actually manage the data pretty well. Because I've seen that people used to do a lot of manual work. They were using Excel files. They were doing even the data governance was completely manual, sending emails to each other. With this advent of master data management technology, I've seen that the operational efficiency has gone up. People have found it very easy that how they are managing their data, how they're synchronizing the data. I mean, I think definitely adding to your points, it is imperative that people start using master data management. Actually, over to you. I mean, I want to ask from you that in your journey as a data consultant, what kind of cases you have seen where MDM is important, MDM or data quality, data management, whatever.
Yeah, like Scott mentioned, it's a foundation, it's a core. I totally agree. So, master data management is like a strategic approach where the focus is all about managing critical organization data sets. It can include your customer data, your product data, your employee, vendor, any financial data, just to make sure it is consistent, accurate, and reliable, because it will help you with the better decision making and give you a lot of benefits in terms of revenues. So I wanted to share a scenario of master data management with respect to data quality improvement. So I was working with a client of retail, and they have inconsistent, inaccurate customer data with duplicate records, outdated contact details, inconsistent formatting, and this has led to their inefficient marketing campaign, resulting in poor customer services, and of course the compliance risk are always there with poor data quality. So this case came to us, and as a consultant, our objective was to improve data quality across systems, also enable seamless operations, and of course, like I mentioned, a better data will result to better decision making, and of course, it will enhance customer satisfaction, which is right now impacting and creating a lot of issues because of this inconsistencies. So, I'll talk about the challenges we face first, and then I'll move what solution we have given. So, the challenges were duplicate records when we start assessing their data, when we start auditing their data. There were inconsistent formats, outdated information, and the major issues that we face is the data was in silos. So, the thing was to implement MDM so that we have a centralized data. And yes, after a lot of studies and considering the budget and investment, we implemented TIPCO EBX as a
Yeah.
MDM tool for this client. And what we suggested as a solution approach, why this particular tool? Because we analyzed different scenarios. So first thing was centralized MDM system. Like I mentioned, we don't need data in silos, we need a centralized MDM system so that uh, anyone, any contractor, any employee, any client, any customers of their, they can use it and fetch information. And then cleansing and standardization was taken care from our team. We made sure data is enriched. When I say enriched, it means there is a better integration with the third party data. For example, in customer data, geography is very important. We wanted to have a proper tracking of which customer from which geography are working. So uh, geography, normally what happens is they don't maintain in their local SAP system or local system, any ERP system. They do refer third party data, so that has to integrate. That was taken care, and that is why I use the term data enrichment, because that was automated, and we had better results. Similarly, we introduced data governance framework, where with quality, also roles and responsibilities are essential for long time maintenance of that data. So we made sure those roles and responsibility in the terms of assigning data steward from those clients, because we are working as a contractors. We'll just introduce the solution and we'll go, and we'll pack our bags and we'll be like bye bye. But they have to make sure that they have that proper roles and responsibility understood in their organization. There should be proper data ownership, validation, and periodic audits. So those kind of information and knowledge transfers we have given. Then, like I mentioned, integration with systems are important. So with customer data, CRM is one of the very important uh, ERP system that was integrated with MDM. So yes, overall the data accuracy was improved. Customers experience that comes later on, when you start tracking your annual or biannual results. Of course, it leads to better decision making. So I'll give you the percentage. So before MDM, there was a stat that marketing campaign mails, in terms of emails, so emails were outdated, which led to 20% failure rate in their marketing campaign, whatever they were planning as a part of promotions or anything. This was a rate of failure. However, after MDM implementations, with email, there was a bounce of 2% up to date results, and the customer services efficiencies were improved to 45%. So that is a stat that I have from the client at that point of time. And I think with the time, we have packed our bags and went, but I think they are improving now. They must be going really well with the MDM integration.
That's a beautiful case study, Prachi, you shared. I'm sure the people listening to us will definitely, relate with this. So, guys, I mean, for you, if you have any questions to Scott and Prachi, please feel free. We will definitely take up your questions. So, over to you, Scott. I'm sure that you have, seen this kind of scenario so many times. And if you're, let's say, you're doing a big conference, and some CIO comes and asks you, "Hey, Scott, can you please tell me that what are the benefits which I can get if I, invest so much money in buying an MDM?" Because buying an MDM is not an easy thing; it's a costly affair. So, what is your advice to a CIO approaching you?
Prachi's story is a classic story, right? That could have been, you could fill in the blank for any type of enterprise of any sort, has multiple systems, sales, marketing, finance, operations, different data types, different views of the same thing. All of that is again, just classic stuff. And the way I try to describe it, but if you walk into a CEO or a CFO or any of those folks, it gets a little too technical when we start talking about data quality. And data quality, just to go off on a little bit, is super important, but it doesn't sell. Nobody cares about data quality other than data quality folks. And if you went up to the CFO and said, "All right, let's invest millions of dollars to improve data quality," it's rare that they would go, "Yeah, that's a great idea." They'd probably go, "Don't you have that handled already?" So my advice is always to talk about why data quality would be important without even mentioning some of that terminology. Again, data quality is important. I'm not saying it isn't, but trying to pitch this to an organization, you have to create some form of business accessible narrative that the executives and your stakeholders are going to understand right away without having to learn anything technical. So phrases like, we need to set a standard in our organization. I mean, I don't care what kind of executive you are, no matter how technical or untechnical you are, everybody understands a standard, and every industry has standards. And so aligning that to your internal data breaks through some of the noise and some of the confusion that some of the stakeholders might have. Or we want to create a common language. You know, we've got different definitions for the same thing. We go into a room and people don't understand each other, even though we're talking about the same topic. And I've got a report and mine says 12 and yours says 9 and 3 of them are different. And then, you know, by the time we figure it out, the meeting's over. Those kinds of problems get solved when you've got this standardized core content across your organization. And even something as simple as, you know, a table. I use that as an example a lot, you know, big fancy data visualization technique. Let's call it a table. People are really good at adding columns, really hard to add those rows. I mean, if you took 2 spreadsheets together, just as a microcosm anecdote, you took 2 spreadsheets together, you bang them together, easy to add the columns, really hard to make sure the rows are correct. And the columns are analytics, the rows are master data. The columns are the meaning, the rows are the truth. I mean, the columns are, you know, tell you about the rows. So even something as simple as that, trying to break through with some very straightforward discussion so people realize. And then another technique I use is to, at some point, show them what that bad data looks like. Show them, look, here are 150 ways we spell, name anything, IBM, Coca-Cola, 7-Eleven. I've got all kinds of examples of those that I show people. And you just, despite what the executives want for their vision of the company, you've got to tie that bad data, that rotten, you know, terrible data, to the strategic intentions of the enterprise. Where's that company going, and why is data management going to help you get there? Those are the things that people who are supporting MDM and want MDM in their organization need to grab onto and articulate if they want to get the funding. We're all looking for money. If you want to get the money, you've got to be able to show them why it's important and why you can't do what you want to do without it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Agree with you. I love that example which you have shared on your LinkedIn as well about the 7-Eleven. I mean, that was a very beautiful way of, explaining that, by 7-Eleven, you can have so many names, so many, similar kind of names. And if you don't know exactly what your organization real name is, then you're definitely, not gonna end up in doing the
I've
right
been
kind of.
using that. I've been using that slide and that little bit for over 25 years. And
Oh my gosh.
I have really mixed emotions about it. One, I'm really delighted that it still makes a point. And 2, I'm rather upset that I still have to talk about it. That this
Absolutely.
25-year-old example still hits home with so many people. It's one of my most popular slides. I tried to get rid of it for a while, and people go, where's the 7-Eleven slide? Because it just shows the problem so clearly. And when you do show that to an enterprise, and when data people look at that, or even business people look at that, you can't talk your way out of this. There was no good reason to have 275 different configurations of the 7-Eleven banner name. And Prachi, I'm sure in your retail example, different product names for the same thing, different addresses,
Yes.
on and on and on and on. So showing that to people, and it's a technique I call, telling somebody their baby's ugly. It's not a very popular, way to phrase it, but it is that kind of moment you have to take with folks to realize, look, this is reality. This is keeping you from getting where you want to go.
Absolutely agree with you. Scott, I have got a question from Pavel Lipko. I want you to address that. Is it better to pitch the need for data quality with fear, percentage of loss of benefits, percentage of more earnings? So that's a question.
Yeah, it's not Sophie's choice here. You don't have to choose one. Do both. I mean, do
Yeah,
both. And
exactly.
there's three big
Yes.
buckets here of grow the business, improve the business, protect the business. Don't get too fancy. And those 3 buckets are really the only buckets I've ever seen of value that people can get out of data. Somebody can list 157 things, but when you really start to roll it up, so grow the business, increase sales, improve the business, operational efficiency, protect the business, mitigate risk. The beauty of master data is you can do all 3 of those things with the same record, with the same data. Why would you want to do
Absolutely.
those separately? And then you'd have all that activity connected in a way that you get a total view or 360 view or comprehensive view. Again, the terminology depends on how you want to position it, but you need a comprehensive understanding of your relationships. It always comes back to that for me. The relationships you have and the brands you create and distribute to bring value to those relationships, the data about those things are the most important data you have.
Absolutely. I think this has answered you, Pavel, but if you have any follow-up question, please feel free. And I'm Scott, as I told you,
Yeah,
with
I don't
the
know who that
loving
is.
storytelling
Anonymously.
example.
Yeah. Whoever you are, thank you. I'm glad you don't forget it.
Just want to add one thing here. So like Scott already mentioned, I think that is what an ideal storytelling about your data or even quality aspect is, just to make sure you have a balance. So you can start with the loss, establish the pain point, create the urgency for that data quality based on your loss scenarios, and then follow up with the benefits and show that how addressing the data quality issue will unlock the values and benefit it will bring to the organization. So
Great
you
point.
need to be a very great storyteller in that way. And of course, your presentation PPT, that needs to be spot on when you're presenting.
And for storytelling, we have Scott. He can give
That's
you
me.
tips for sure.
Well,
Scott,
I wrote a whole book about that. It's called Telling Your Data Story. I'll do my little pitch here. Data storytelling for data management. It's
oh wow,
99% buzzword free if you can read that. I didn't want to
Scott,
overpromise, but
give
it
me
was
the link. I need that book.
that what?
I said I want to order that book, so give me the link for
You
sure.
order that book, it's on Amazon. It's and it really came from my experience in talking to all kinds of enterprises, really at every level of their maturity in all the categories I could reach out to all across the earth, really. So I guess limits my scope a little bit, but just seeing the common themes, the common trends, the common objections, the common challenges and goals that these companies had, that made me realize enterprise data management might be slightly, gets different when you get to analytics. It gets different when you get to sort of the types of things, but at its core, at its foundation, it's enterprises are more the same than they are different when it comes to some of these challenges. They might use different terminology, but there really is a common theme through every type of enterprise that's trying to manage this sort of data. And I tried to articulate that in the book and help people put that story together to get somebody to go from, here's what you want. You want to go into your CEO's office and you want to be able
Yeah.
to take them from, I have no idea what you're talking about, to how do we live without this? And that
Yes.
happens with a story. That's the power of storytelling.
That's very important. See, ultimately, you need to convince your bosses, you need to convince your management that why do you want to do this much of investment? Because as I told in the beginning, it's not easy money. It is a big money which people need to put in for any kind of MBM initiatives. So it's very important that they have that story. They have the right messaging which should go to the management and they approve their funding. Well, I have one more question coming to
Roberto,
you.
how are you, sir? Nice to see you.
So, Robert, Roberto, thank you so much for asking a question. So, I'll just take this question to Scott. Uh, can you calculate the data depth that you need to fill in order to achieve an outcome, Scott?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, however you want to define data debt, whatever, pithy terminology or colloquialism or lexicon you want to use to describe it. It's, you can talk about data debt as long as the other person on the other side of the table knows what data debt is. And my only caveat is if it takes you 15 minutes to explain what data debt is to somebody who you're trying to get money from, then don't bother because you've wasted 15 minutes. So make sure you use terminology that the business understands, speak the language of your business. But yes, master data can get you out of data debt, no problem. If you're really locked into a bunch of, legacy content that isn't doing what you need to do.
So much. I hope, Robert, you got your answer. Well,
Roberto knows
question.
the answer. He knows it. Yeah. He's just throwing me a softball.
So, Scott, one more question. This generally for the salesmen, who are trying to sell MDM, and I have seen that people go very technical when they're talking to CIOs or the business heads. They want to tell them about the architecture and the core of the technology. But sometimes I've seen it's basically they are not able to relate with CIOs because why CIO wants to put the money is to solve their business benefits, solve their business purpose, not that this tool architecture is very nice or something. So just a tip for them that how they should go about pitching the MDM solution to CIOs.
Every MDM seller out there should buy my book, since it's basically how to sell MDM and data management into your organization. That came from my experience of selling in master data to all sorts of organizations. A really good tip: go, if it's a public company, go read what the CEO said in the CEO's letter in the annual report. Go watch the investor day presentation of the prospect that you're talking to. And this is the same tip for people who work at enterprises. So if you're trying to sell this in, whether internally or externally, go listen to the leaders of the company you're going after. Again, you could work at that company or you could be selling to that company. Find their main strategy points, and I will guarantee none of them will talk about data quality. None of them are going to talk about we need better data hygiene. They're going to talk about relationships, and they're going to talk about brands, and they're going to talk about doing things at scale. Those are your hooks. That's where you start. And an example I use in my presentations all the time is a Fortune 100 company that I took a look at their investor day presentation. Their vision for the entire company, what their CEO said our whole company is driving towards, is to be the premier partner of choice to our customers and vendors. That's relationships right there. And in that discussion, we looked at their data, and they had their own version of 7-Eleven. And part of the process was to show them, look, your CEO has said they want to be the premier partner of choice for these relationships, and the data you have about your relationships sucks. It's a mess. You can't get there from here if you don't fix this, no matter how much you layer on top of it. Why do you think they call it a foundation? Okay, these are good metaphors. They call it a foundation because you build on top of it. So everybody understands that. But those are the kind of hooks. And I've done, I've more than my share of talking about this at cocktail parties, at receptions, at conferences where you don't have a lot of time. You can't do a demo. You can't pull anything out and show anybody anything. You've got to have a 3 to 5 minute discussion to get somebody's interest and attention about the value you can bring to them.
Absolutely. I mean, that's a gold tip. Guys, if you are a sales person and listening to this podcast, then take this tip for sure. I mean, that's a gold tip, I would say, from Scott. Scott and Prachi, now moving on, we also have this agenda in our podcast that what's next in MDM, like in year 2025. What are some of the trends you can see? So, Prachi, I want to ask from you, what do you think that in year 2025, what are the data management aspects which people should definitely look at?
There are a lot of trends going on already, like with AI and then Gen AI. However, one thing, because I'm working with a European client, and this is very common in Europe, everybody is following it already, and there are chances that everybody soon will be adapting it all. That is about sustainable data, and it is called as environmental social governance goals, which is ESG. That is how it is recognized. So the thing is, it's like a combination of regulatory requirements, your stakeholder expectations, and you also see your operational efficiencies to make sure that your data is sustainable and following data practices accordingly. So I'll just give a brief so that our audience don't confused. So what does it mean is optimizing how data is stored, processed, transmitted, so that it can be consumed in a more sustainable way. This is what it means. Now I'll tell you, and most relatable trends that you can relate to is uh, like minimizing data redundancy. That is what is going on right now. we make sure the data is unique, it should not be duplicated. Those are the terms that everybody is using. Then there is also something called dark data. Now dark data is identifying your data that is not utilized for a longer period of time, and then if it is not utilized, delete it. Why to keep it? You can reduce the size, reduce the storage, and that is how you can sustain your data management overall. So these are the practices that are in trend. And I'll just give one example from supply chain. So I'm working with a supply chain client. So the from business perspective, the idea is to monitor that the supply sustainability practices are followed. And since we talk about supplies, the automatically the common term is about materials. So the sourcing has to be sustainable. That is what the target is, and for that, master data is the most important thing. It is the critical and the core or the fundamental, how you can start, or where you can start your sustainability from, to make sure that it has some value to your organization, and also to everybody who is a part of this activity. Like I said, all the stakeholders. So yes, this is something that is going on.
Oh,
I
absolutely.
think
I mean,
Matt said it's the most sustainable data out there. Just to play on
Yeah.
on even just simply the metaphor: reduce, reuse, recycle. I mean, you reduce the amount of data you need if you have standardized master data, there's fewer duplicates. You recycle it across your whole organization using the same data over and over and over again, and you don't have all of the effort you need to kind of create new data for stuff that doesn't need to be created. And then you reduce the amount of data you actually need as well. So using the kind of classic 3 R's of recycling here, and then at least in the US, reduce, reuse, recycle, it
Yes.
falls right into that. And no matter what's happening in terms of trends, I'm not a trend guy to see what the future will bring. But what I do know is whatever the future is, if it has to do with technology, there is a role for master data. And AI, just in case anybody's wondering, it's not going to replace the need for master data. It's going to
Yes.
help in stewardship, but it's not going to create and standardize it in a way that makes you avoid having to do the hard work. You still have to do the work to set a standard for your organization, to define those what those entities are, to make sure you understand the hierarchies and the classifications and geographies, unique identifiers, all this stuff. So AI isn't an Ozempic for data management here. You still have to do the hard work, but it will help.
sure, I agree with you, Scott. I mean, that's the misconception people has that AI is going to replace everything. I mean, still, as you said, that you still need to do the hard work, the hard yardsticks of managing the data. That is something which still humans has to take the responsibility. AI can only help with you in streamlining stewardship, as you mentioned. I got a question from Kate, Scott. So, what will
Yes, I see
the
Kate.
future bring?
I'm laughing because she's a good friend of mine. So she's up watching me on TV as I often watch her. So what will the future bring? Thank you, Kate. The future is only going to bring more data problems, and more need for data storytelling and influential data content out there from content producers like Kate and I, making sure people understand and can amplify the message. So there you go. There's my quick answer for Kate.
Thank you
And
so
more
much,
fun.
Scott.
It's going to bring more fun in the data space. That's what the future is going to bring.
Yeah, thank you so much, Scott. I think we are coming to the close of our podcast. So, guys, if you have any question, please feel free. So, I will ask one or two questions to Scott and Prachi, and then probably we can end. Scott, just before we go, I want you to underline, some 3, 4 key benefits, or which people can derive after investing in MDM, like some of the top 3, 4 benefits which you can underline.
There's 2 ways to go about this. One, I can talk about, let me see the core benefits in terms of boiling my entire data philosophy down to 3 words: truth before meaning. You got to determine the truth in your data before you derive any meaning out of it. And look at all the efforts you've got in your organization that uses meaningful data. You want to be a data-driven organization. You want to use Gen AI. You want to install and implement a new CRM, you need to overhaul your ERP. All those things are going to need master data. And so the key benefit, I think, of master data is it's an enabler for all these other technologically based initiatives. So master data on its own doesn't do much, but all the other, many of the other things you're trying to do in your organization need this, gas for those cars, need the food for those kitchens, need the water for those pipes, whatever analogy you want to use. But it's the enabler that makes everything else that's technologically oriented in your organization run smoothly and allows it to scale.
Well, that's a great sum up, Scott. Prachi, over to you. So, how will you sum up some of the benefits of MDM?
Uh, there are numerous. So, majorly, why do we need data management? Of course, for operational efficiency, like I mentioned already, for better decision making. So, what are we targeting on if we talk about all this? So, that means your MDM will definitely improve your data quality and consistency. It is going to enhance your decision making all automatically. If you have better decisions, you can view better results, you can streamline your operations, your data is compliant as per the standards, then automatically your cost efficiency is going to improve, your customer experience and satisfaction is going to improve. So that means your investments are going to your sorry revenue is going to improve, your overall brand value is going to improve, and it's going to make a big impact. And there are also different future readiness thing that you can see with a scalable data framework. So your data is ready for any kind of implementation. When I say implementation, that means with respect to these gen AI, because AI, I think it's common now, so everybody's shifting to gen AI. So I think it is ready, so you are ready for the future frameworks as well.
Let me speak
Absolutely,
to
that's
this
a great
comment
sum.
Pavel had here. What is truth if not politically correct? Just so you know, when I say truth, I don't mean politics. I don't mean your own personal development, spiritual truth or philosophical truth. I mean it in a business context. I know there's a smile on that comment there, but sometimes people take the truth and meaning thing a little bit beyond its scope. But in your organization, you can determine the truth. You can define the truth of customer definitions, of hierarchical structure, of standard categories, of geographies. I mean, every business I ever ran into has a category called other. How truthful is that? They just, it's truthful because the salesperson doesn't feel like filling in the right kind of category. So having standardized categories and making sure that's consistent across your organization, that is the ground truth of your business. And if you don't figure that out, you're going to not be able to do a lot of the things you're trying to do.
Yeah, I mean, I hope Parag, you got the answer. I mean, thank you so much, Scott and Prachi, for spending so much time and giving the right examples and use cases that why MDM is important. And that's exactly what we discuss. We do at Envision. So talking about Envision, we almost spent almost 2 decades in MDM, and I worked across multiple clients verticals. And majorly, our focus is to give customers the right message that if you're investing, then what are the benefits you're going to get. And I'm sure that Scott and Prachi, if they have seen this podcast, I'm sure they can relate and they can have the correct storytelling to their bosses and to their funding approvers. Well, Scott, before we end, I want you to because I really loved that that video, the spoofy video which you have shown, that if MDM is not there, what's going to happen. So I want you to end that in your style, that data whisperer style, that what will happen if they don't have MDM.
In duplicates, lack of hierarchy, again, no categorization, systems won't talk to each other, and you'll basically get disrupted by another organization that has better data than you, regardless of how good your product is. I mean, take a look at all the big companies that people aspire to be like: Netflix, Uber, Airbnb, Amazon. They all have highly structured, well-governed, expertly stewarded data across their organization. Don't think that they don't. They can't do the things they are talking about without that. So it's got to be something that you put on your priority list. And again, if you're thinking of not doing it, I'd like to understand why you think you can get away without it. But some of these things that referring, I take a look at my videos. If any of this hits you and, you want to help look for ways to help tell your story, take a look at my YouTube channel, just Google the Data Whisperer, and you'll find a whole bunch of videos on YouTube. Some are serious, some are a little more humorous, with either my grandson telling him a data story or data puppets or cartoons, whatever it takes to break through the noise in your organization to have people realize that this is the most important data that you have.
Absolutely. I mean, thank you so much, Scott, for giving a beautiful summary, and thank you so much, Prachi. And I'm sure Scott I would definitely meet you at some conference. But all the best for your Nigeria conference.
Thank you.
All right, take care, guys. All of you also, thanks so much for joining our podcast, and we'll keep bringing you such content. Thank you for keep hooking to us, and thank you so much, Scott and Prachi, again. And it was a wonderful podcast. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much. Have a great day and good night. Bye bye.